This here is a 1996 FXSTS. The FXST stands for Softail, the FX being the FX style model Softail, and the S standing for Springer. The Springer Softail was introduced originally in 1988, which was also the 85th anniversary year. So they made an 85th anniversary Softail, which often people bought with the 85th anniversary knife, which came in its own little glass case. I had quite a few of them back in the day. This one here is fairly stock. It has accessory Harley Davidson mufflers. Here, factory accessory mufflers. You can maybe see the little Harley Davidson right there on the side. A little faint. Those are accessory Harley Davidson bags. Here. Those are original Harley bags. They're just accessory items. It is original paint. It's got 5,000 miles on the Speedo, which I got it from the original owner's nephew, and according to him, that's the original miles. The title does not argue with that. The condition overall is extremely nice. The CAD is very, very good shape. And even the little nuts and bolts on the Springer, well, that's real telltale sign of age and condition. Got a little hidden CAD on the tank, that sort of stuff. You want to really watch for that sort of thing. So we can get in there and see it up close. A little fitting, little CAD fitting, that sort of stuff. You want to really watch for all that. See where your little nuts and bolts are. So this bike here has this little dent in the tank. So where do you find the original paint left tank? And it's right in the decal. So it's kind of unfixable, but it is what it is. It's still a nice bike. So a friend of mine asked me to get him one, and I asked for a severe discount because of that dent, and return that discount to the friend who requested the machine. Doesn't bother to have it. Now, the other day somebody posted, well, what about Evos and the history of Evos? So we'll tell you a little bit about them. The Evolution motor came out in 1984. And in 1984, also, concurrently, at the same time, you could buy a shovel head. You guys are going, huh? Well, that's right. 1984, your first Softail come out. It was a 4-speed, rigid-mounted motor. It's not a 5-speed, it was a 4-speed. The 4-speed Softails were made in 84 and 85. They had a kick and electric start. This one here is 5-speed. 5-speed trans. And your 84 and 85 models on the Softail were kick and electric start with a 4-speed. The Evo model was also offered starting in 85 with an FXWG and an FXEF. The FXEF was the Fat Bob Super Glide, and FXWG, which is very similar to a FXDWG, the Dyna Wide Glide made today, except in this case it was a 4-speed kickstart, rigid mounted Evo bike. It was just like a FXWG shovel head, except in this case it had the Evo motor, and the frame was slightly altered to fit the Evo motor, a little taller. So, also in 84, you had your FLH, which was a shovel head, 4-speed rigid mounted bike. You had your FXE, you had your FXSB, which was a hybridization of a earlier FXB Sturgis model and a FXS lowrider, which that model, FXSB, rear belt drive, was only made in 83 and 84. But in 84, if you had a rubber mounted bike like an FLT series bike, FLHS series bike, an FXR series bike, which the FXR came out in 82 with a shovel head. Only 82 and 83 shovel head FXRs were made. The FLT series came out with their first rubber mounted frame in 1980 with a 5-speed, which was a shovel head motor. So that's 1980, 81, 82, and 83 shovel head FLT series bikes. But in 84, anything that was rubber mounted, your FXR series, FLT series, were Evos. And they had a rear chain, not a rear belt, a rear chain. In 85, they introduced the rear chain, on the Evo 5-speed. And the Evo FXWG and FXEF 85 had a rear belt. And those two models were also made till mid-year 1986, the FXWG and the FXEF with the Evo. Now the history of the Evo is very interesting, and I know this for an absolute fact because I was there. I bought my very first bike in 1981 at Barger Harley Davidson in Canoga Park. And what we did, anybody who bought a new bike was invited, and they paid you money. It was like 20 or 30 bucks, which was actually pretty good money. You have a nice meal for that, and gas in your tank at the time. So it'd be like $100 today. They paid you to go down and see a mock-up of this 4-cylinder Porsche engine they were thinking about building, and this new Softail with an Evo motor in it. And which would we buy if we bought the next bike? And of course, everybody picked the Evo motor with the Softail. We thought that was great because we were all liking, you know, swing arms. It's kind of cool, but we want like the rigid style, blah blah blah. It was so cooler, and wow, here's a rigid style bike with shocks. This is so neat. Everybody loved it. So it was like 99% unanimous that we'd buy an Evo. And this here, when they did this, is the very beginning of 1982, right about February or so. And we went in mass. A whole bunch of us showed up to this. And it was like the talk of the town. And they probably did the same thing all over the country, I imagine, but they certainly did it here in LA. And so in 84, they actually introduced the Evo, the Evolution motor, the Evolution of Harley Davidson. 1981, late in the year, Willie G and some private investors bought the company back from AMF. 82 was the first full year of it's actually Harley Davidson again. Well, now it's a big corporation, but at the time it wasn't. It was just some private investors and Willie G that bought the company back. And so it was this really big thing. It was the evolution of Harley Davidson, and the company's back, and this mass campaign, and it was like, wow, and it was so cool, and we were all happy. Me being a young kid finding this wonderful world of motorcycles. So I was all of 19 when I got my 1981 lowrider. So the Evolution, you actually had a top end that would last. You had aluminum cylinders instead of steel cylinders, so you didn't have to do a top end every 20,000-30,000 miles. An Evo with proper care will last on the top end 100,000 miles. A shovel head or earlier bike to go that length of time is really incredible. It's fairly common for an Evo to do that with a little bit of care. The biggest problem is that the early Evos, and even the later ones, especially the early ones, the different gaskets they had at the time, people wouldn't warm the motors up properly, and they'd take off, and then they'd blow out the base gaskets. So, anyhow, that was the big issue. Whereas a shovel head, man, within a couple thousand miles, your little O-ring rockers on the side of the rockers would start leaking. You always had manifold problems, major manifold leaks, which people ride like that, then they blow up the top end. Whine, bitch, whine. Oh my God, I can't believe I blew up the top end because they didn't replace the manifold O-rings. Whereas Evo actually had these cool exhaust with dual flanges, so they wouldn't pull out, properly mounted. It had this dual flange bolted manifold, so you didn't get manifold leaks for umpteen years of riding hard with just a little bit of breathing on these bikes. You lighten and balance the flywheels, throw a cam in it, some kind of high-performance car, but it'd take out any 90-inch shovel head around. We couldn't believe how fast they were. It was just incredibly fast in comparison with the shovel head. It was this new world. Everybody was happy. Well, the last Evo off the line on a production bike that you could order without a special edition was 1999. 1999 also saw the introduction of the twin cam. All your Softail models in 1999 were Evo, and all your rubber mounted in 99 were twin cam. So all your Dyna glides, that sort of stuff. In 99, in 2000 and 2001, I believe it is, they had found some FXR frames, and they made an FXR 1, 2, and 3 special edition, about 1,800 units a year. It might have been 800 units a year. It wasn't much. I forget now. I wasn't paying that much attention at the time. And except for these limited edition FXRs, which the FXR had actually ceased production in 94. that was it. So they did make a very limited 2000 and 2001 Evo model FXRs as a special request because they had these extra frames and they were still selling motors. They figured, well, why not? And they did it. Since then, except for that, since 2000, all we've had is twin cams. Very fast today. They're 98 inches and 6 speeds and wide driver ends and the modern bike and all that sort of stuff. But it's not an Evo. An Evo is its own thing, just like a shovelhead is its own thing, a panhead is its own thing, a knucklehead is its own thing. They are their own bike. And the right guys love to collect these machines. They're becoming highly collectible now. With certain bikes, and especially when they're stock like this. And that's where it's at. That's the history of the Evo. In the early years, saw some very limited number of Evos made. The FXRs, they had Liberty editions, they had all kinds of little special thises and that's, and in the first days they made 800 of this, 1,000 of that, many different early Evo limited editions to try and spur the market. And they're collectible. They're not quite as collectible as the later Evos. The later Evos had a better motor, was updated, less prone to base gasket leaks, better oil pump, that sort of stuff. This is, the late Evo is, even though it's not a twin cam, it is absolutely a truly modern machine. Quality brakes, quality motor. You have to do something really stupid to break these bikes. And there's stupid people born every day thinking they're smart, but these bikes can take a licking and keep on checking their Timexes. They're really wonderful machines. Anyhow, that's the history of Evo according to Todd. I'm going to fire it up now, test the systems, and we'll see you guys on the next video. Choke. last thing I wanted to mention. When they came out with the Springer in '88, they made a very, very limited signed number edition of Super Bowl bikes. And I forget, it was either 50 or 51. And they were all numbered according to, somebody told me it was either the number of states, which is obviously 50, or how many guys had played in the Super Bowl. And which the story is now, it's been too many years. I actually had a chance to buy one of them at one time in '89, and I passed on it because he wanted a lot of money and had 30,000 miles on it, which was like, whoa, 30,000 for a new bike? I've never seen another one since, but they did make them. Most people don't know they made them. I have no idea how many are left, if any have even survived. So, but in '88, they did make a limited number of Super Bowl bikes commemorating that year's Super Bowl. And I'm such a football fan, it took me a while to just remember the name of the Super Bowl. I got football, and it's not bikes. I can care less. If it ain't bikes, I don't know about it. I was pretty impressed. It was obviously real. It was obviously there. It was obviously back there. It was like, wow, this is really cool. How rare. But I couldn't make a deal with it, and I didn't get the bike. But it's still neat today. These are vintage. This is 2013. So that makes this bike here, add it up now, 17 years old. It's not an antique yet, but it's not very far away. Another 8 years, this will be an antique. In 8 more years, that will be an antique. So the baby of today, by the time they're 8 years old, that'll be an antique motorcycle. Pretty incredible to me, but that's the reality of it. So, some guys go by 35, which is what I prefer, and other guys are going 25 years. Whatever floats your boat. But it's certainly vintage. They're getting hard to find like this. I like them. I've always liked Evos. When they came out with the twin cam, I just stopped following Harley. I don't know that much about twin cams. It's just like, okay, new world, I'm good. And I've only had a couple of twin cams, but the Evos I'm very fond of. They're very, very good machine. So anyhow, guys, we'll see you next time. Bye.